Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, YouTube. Today we are continuing with our Bible readings. We are in Genesis chapter 28. I hope that you are following along with your own Bible. I am again using the Scriptures translation. And let's just jump right in. Now, before we start into chapter 28, let's go back a paragraph to the last paragraph of 27. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like those who are the daughters of the land, what is my life to me? And now the beginning of chapter 8. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and commanded him, and said to him, Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife for yourself from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And El Shaddai bless you, and make you fruitful and increase you, and you shall become an assembly of peoples. And give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your seed with you, so that you inherit the land of your sojournings, which Elohim gave to Abraham. So Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, and Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. And Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and sent him away to Padan Aram to take himself a wife from there. And that as he blessed him, he gave him a command, saying, Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. And Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother, and had gone to Padan Aram. So Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan did not please his father Isaac. And Esau went to Ishmael, and took Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife, besides the wives he had. And Jacob went out from Beersheba, and went towards Haran. And he came upon a place, and stopped over for the night, for the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place, and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and saw a ladder set up on the earth, and its top reached to the heavens, and saw messengers of Elohim going up and coming down on it. And see, Yahweh stood above it, and said, I am Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham your father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land on which you are lying, I give it to you and your seed. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And all the clans of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your seed. And see, I am with you, and shall guard you wherever you go, and shall bring you back to this land. For I am not going to leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. And Jacob awoke from his sleep, and said, Truly, Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid, and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of the heavens. And Jacob rose early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put at his head, and set it up as a standing column, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. However, the name of that city had been Luz previously. And Jacob made a vow, saying, Seeing Elohim is with me, and has kept me in this way, I am going, and has given me bread to eat, and a garment to put on. When I have returned to my father's house in peace, and Yahweh has been my Elohim, then this stone, which I have set as a standing column, shall be Elohim's house. And of all that you give me, I shall certainly give a tenth to you. First off, a short little chapter there. We have Jacob goes away, but before he goes, Isaac gives him another blessing, this time on purpose, and tells him not to take a wife from the Canaanites, to go to the same place that he got his wife from, and old Uncle Laban, and go get a wife from there. Esau hears that. Now, Esau already has 2 Canaanite wives. So he hears this, and he thinks, well, maybe I have displeased my father in taking of these wives. So he decides to take a 3rd wife, but this one from Ishmael, which would be a relative of Abraham. Well, let's see. Dad thought I took the wrong wives, so I'll take a third one. Because logic. And something we're going to see repeated through the Old Testament is, even though it was perfectly legal to take more than one wife, it wasn't against the law or anything, but it usually doesn't go so well. And we're going to see this repeated a lot. So just because something's legal doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Jacob, on the other hand, he sets off towards Uncle Laban's place. And he has this dream or vision while he's there of a ladder or a stairway, depending on whose interpretation you're looking at, to heaven. And Yahweh gives him the message that he is with him and he is going to fulfill this promise that was made to Abraham. And this is where we start to see a change in Jacob. He wasn't the greatest person before that. You know, dressing up like his brother, with goat skins on his hands and neck. But dressing up as his brother to take the blessing that was meant for his brother. We go from that to what later will become Israel. So this is the beginning of the change and the maturity we start to see in Jacob from this vision. He's still got a long way to go, but you can start to see the wheels turning. Chapter 29. And Jacob, lifted up his feet and came to the land of the sons of the east. And he looked and saw a well in the field, and saw 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a large stone was on the well's mouth. And all the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from the well's mouth and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. So Jacob said to them, My brothers, where are you from? And they said, We are from Haran. And he said to them, Do you know Laban, son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. So he said to them, Is he well? And they said, Well. And see, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. And he said, See, it is still high day, not the time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go and feed them. But they said, We are not allowed until all the flocks are gathered together, and they have rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Then we shall water the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. And it came to be, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And when Jacob told Rachel that he was his father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son, she ran and told her father. And it came to be, when Laban heard the report about Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to the house. Then he told Laban all these matters. And Laban said to him, You are indeed my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him for a new moon. Then Laban said to Jacob, Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for naught? Let me know what should be your wages. And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. And Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, Let me serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. And Laban said, It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to another man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are completed, and let me go in to her. And Laban gathered all of the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to be in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. And Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a female servant. And in the morning it came to be that, see, it was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? What is not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? And Laban said, it is not done this way in our place, to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, the celebratory wedding week. Then we will give you this one too, for the service which you shall serve with me still another 7 years. And Jacob did so, and completed her week. Then he gave him his daughter Rachel too, as wife. And Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel, as a female servant. And he also went in to Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served with Laban still another 7 years. And Yahweh saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son. And she called his name Reuben, for she said, for Yahweh has looked on my affliction, because now my husband is going to love me. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, because Yahweh has heard that I am unloved, he gave me this son too. And she called his name Simon, or Shimon. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband is joined to me, because I have bore him 3 sons. So his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now I praise Yahweh. So she called his name Judah, or Yehudah. And she ceased bearing. It's the end of that chapter. So, Uncle Laban, he did to Jacob what Jacob did to Esau, pretty much. Pulled the old switcheroo, deceived him, dressed one up as another. The wedding feasts, I hear, involved a lot of wine back then. So Jacob was probably too drunk to notice that it was Leah instead of Rachel. So it wasn't until the morning that he was like, whoa, what's happened here? And he talks to Uncle Laban, and, it's like, oh, well, we got to give the first one away before we get the second one away. So work for me for another 7 years of servitude. It's like indentured servitude. But we'll let you have Rachel right after this wedding week here. But then you got to work for another 7 years. Wow. Jacob has definitely, he's definitely reaping now what he has sown. But he does it. And he continues to work for Laban and care for his sheep as if they were his own. He takes good care. He's loyal, even though he knows he was deceived. But he still does good work. For 14 years. When Leah gives birth, she is saying that it was Yahweh. Yahweh did it. And he's the one that has blessed her. But it doesn't say she praises him for it until the last one. But Jacob ends up with 2 wives through deception. But the one that he doesn't like as much, well, she gets the babies. Remember when I said things, they don't go so well? Yeah. Chapter 30. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said to Jacob, give me children, or else I am going to die. And Jacob's displeasure burned against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of Elohim, who has withheld you the fruit of the womb? And she said, see, my female servant Bilhah. Go into her, and let her bear for me, and let me be built up from her as well. Sound familiar? Well, I'm not, having children right now, so here's my servant. So she gave him Bilhah, her female servant, as wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, Elohim has rightly ruled my case, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son. So she called his name Dan. And Rachel's female servant Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have overcome. So she called his name Naphtali. And Leah saw that she had ceased bearing, and she took Zilpah, her female servant, and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, Fortune comes. So she called his name Gad. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, I am happy, for the daughters shall call me happy. So she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found love apples in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, Please give me some of your son's love apples. But she said to her, Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's love apples too? And Rachel said, Therefore, let him lie with you tonight for your son's love apples. And when Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, Do come in to me, for indeed I have hired you with my son's love apples. And he lay with her that night. And Elohim listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, Elohim has given me my hire, because I have given my female servant to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, Elohim has presented me with a good present. Now my husband is going to dwell with me, because I have bore him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And Elohim remembered Rachel, and Elohim listened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, Elohim has taken away my reproach. So she called his name Joseph, and said, Yahweh has added to me another son. And it came to be, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way to go on my own place to my land. Give my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you yourself know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay, for I have diligently watched that Yahweh has blessed me for your sake. And he said, Name me your wages, and I give it. So he said to him, You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For the little you had before I came has increased greatly. And Yahweh has blessed you since my coming. But now when I am to provide for my own house too? And he said, What do I give you? And Jacob said, Give me naught. If you do this for me, I shall again feed and guard your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the black ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. And my righteousness shall answer for me in time to come. When you come concerning my wages, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and black among the lambs, it is stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, See, let it be according to your word. And on that day he set aside the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the black ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar, and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white stripes in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, and they conceived when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs, and made the flocks face toward the streaked, and all the black in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to be, whenever the strong ones of the flock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the flock in the gutters, so that they would conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were weak, he did not put them in, so the weak ones were Laban's, and the strong ones Jacob's. Thus the man increased very much, and had many flocks, and female and male servants, and camels, and donkeys. Okay. First, the love apples. From what I have read, it was some kind of an aphrodisiac. And Leah's son took her some aphrodisiacs. Because Leah had stopped having babies. So he was trying to help his mom out. But when Rachel saw that, Rachel was like, hey, why don't you let me have them? So Leah's like, all right, well, I get Jacob tonight. And you can have those. Yeah. And then there's the giving of the female servants. Both of them now. Just back and forth. Well, I have to have more kids than her. Well, I have to have more kids than her. And this is why I say having more than one wife, while it may have been legal, doesn't go very well. There's jealousy and bitterness and competition. They were definitely competing with each other and giving their servants as basically concubines in the process. So Jacob goes to Uncle Laban and was like, hey, you know what? My second set of 7 years is done, and it's time to go. I fulfilled my promise. And Uncle Laban is like, hey, no, don't leave. I have been blessed because Yahweh has blessed you, and that has blessed me, so please stay. I'll pay you. What are your wages? So Jacob was like, all right, well, I've got all these kids to feed now, so let me have some of the flock. I'll just take the ones you don't want, the speckled, the striped, or the black sheep. The sheep were better if they were white. It was like, I'll just take the funky looking ones. And Laban's like, all right, deal. And so he stays on for a few more years. But he does this thing where the strong sheep, he puts some kind of striped stick thing in front of them, and supposedly that makes them give birth to striped, speckled, or black sheep. And this is with the sheep and the goats. So, I don't think this is like a thing. Like, it doesn't go into like, did God tell him to do that? Did he ask God to do that? Was this like a practice that he had learned from somewhere? It doesn't go into why he did that. So we don't really know. But I don't think it's a thing. I think that was Yahweh, because you'll see with Moses, Yahweh has Moses do some strange things, and then works through those strange things. But without Yahweh, of course, that wouldn't happen. I think this is another one of those things, like a miracle. But I don't know where it came from. I don't know if he's just like, oh, I see what you're doing here. All right, we'll make that work. Or if God told him the why has been left out, so we don't know why. But that's what he does, and it works, apparently. So the strong sheep and goats have speckled and striped babies, and those go to Jacob. The weak ones, they have the pure white ones, or goats, I guess the pure black ones, or the not speckled and spotted. Yeah, so Jacob does really well for himself. And I think Jacob did that. Well, I think he wanted the spotted ones so that Laban couldn't later say, no, wait, those are mine. Because it would be very obvious to everyone that, yep, those are the speckled and spotted. Those are not. He's already been deceived once. You know, take precautions so he doesn't do it again. But he breeds them to get more for his flock and the better and stronger ones. And it works. Yahweh blesses him, gives him the stronger ones a lot. He increases his flock a lot. And that's where it ends the chapter. So it's gone through several years very quickly there in just a couple of chapters. By the time Jacob goes home, it's been like 20 years since he left. Just a little preview. Next week, yeah, Jacob's going to go home. But he's been gone for a long time. And he has matured and he's gotten closer to Yahweh in the process and reproduced a whole lot. And these children will be the different clans of Israel in the future. But we will read more about that very soon. I think that's about it. So, thanks for coming along with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're following along, and I hope you join us again next week. May the Father bless you all. Shalom.